answer to injustice is not to silence the critic, but to end the injustice, Paul Robeson once stated. With this statement, he explained how it is not the right method to suppress people's actions, and instead, we must change the way people think and act. Paul Robeson stood for many of the things we stand for in the Princeton community today. This year, the killing of George Floyd sparked many protests across the nation and reminded us that in our society, there are still many unconscious biases that we were originally unaware of. Princeton Public Schools made the decision to change the name of the middle school from the former name, John Witherspoon Middle School, to the interim name, Princeton Unified Middle School. John Witherspoon was the 6th president of Princeton University. He had a complicated relation to slavery, in which he would lecture people on the abolition of slavery, but even owned slaves himself. In our history, slavery has started the many biases that are present in our society today, and the unfair decision to judge people by their skin color. We do not want one race of people to walk into a building almost every day and know that the person in which it was named after treated their ancestors horribly. Robeson was born on April 9th of 1898, right here in Princeton, New Jersey. His family consisted of his mother, Anna Louisa, father, an escaped enslaved person named William Drew Robeson, his 3 brothers, William Drew Robeson Jr., Benjamin Robeson, and Reeve Robeson, and his sister, Marian Robeson. When Paul Robeson was just 6 years old, his mother died in a fire. His father moved the family to Somerville, New Jersey, where Paul Robeson excelled in academics and sang in church. He had many hobbies and interests, such as performing in Julius Caesar and Othello, singing in chorus, and playing sports such as football, basketball, and track. Despite the many racial biases and taunts, Robeson's excellence and achievements in many areas of education allowed him to win an academic contest, giving him a 4-year Rutgers scholarship. Robeson was the 3rd African American to earn a scholarship to attend Rutgers University, but became one of the institution's most decorated students. He received top honors for his debate and oratory skills, and was elected Phi Beta Kappa, the oldest academic honor society of the United States, and became his class valedictorian. Paul Robeson was a well-known singer, scholar, athlete, actor, civil rights activist, and a political radical. Robeson is believed to be the first black football player of Rutgers. During his time at the institution, he made the Rutgers Scarlet Knights football team. He also joined the debating team and sang off and on campus. His accomplishments were recognized in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, magazine, The Crisis. Robeson was able to continue his stride, winning 15 varsity letters in football, baseball, basketball, and track collectively. Walter Camp, who was an American football coach and writer, considered him the greatest end ever, winning him first-team All-American selection. After graduating from Rutgers in 1919, he entered New York University School of Law, later deciding to transfer to Columbia Law School in 1920. Excelling in singing, his fame grew in the black community, and he started performing in places like the Harlem YWCA. He got into acting by starring as Jim in Taboo in Broadway's Sam Harris Theater. He starred in the film The Emperor Jones, which became the first film to feature an African American as the lead role. Robeson was also well known internationally for being a performer for social justice, learning more than 20 languages in order to break down the barriers of race and ignorance, and fight for justice and peace. In 1946, Robeson met President Truman, stating to abolish lynching after the lynching of 4 African Americans. This led him to founding the American Crusade Against Lynching. Robeson was also one of the main members of the Henry A. Wallace's committee, speaking on tour at places like the World Peace Council. Unfortunately, his contributions to the Allied forces were no use, as he was said to be a major threat to the American democracy. In 1950, the State Department denied and revoked Robeson's passport in an act to silence him, forcing him not to speak up and discredit him. However, in the next 8 years, he co-founded the monthly newspaper Freedom, which spread the news about Paul Robeson's story. In 1958, Robeson was finally able to receive his passport and have it returned to him. Countries would celebrate Robeson's 60th birthday as he holds his spring comeback tour, while also publishing his autobiography, Here I Stand, until finally setting down and passing away in 1976. So, what was his connection to the Princeton community? Well, as we said before, Paul Robeson was born in Princeton, and he also often visited the town during his lifetime. One of the streets in Princeton is even named after him. Paul Robeson helped pave the way for Princeton to become a more inclusive society and a more inclusive university. As we have presented to you, Paul Robeson has shown grit and strength in his character on his journey to becoming successful. Despite the racism, he pushed through the barriers of bias and prejudice and outperformed the others in a number of areas that few could achieve. Paul Robeson knew what it felt like to be underestimated for your skin color, and his father was even an escaped enslaved person. But he still found a way to overcome the obstacles. Paul Robeson deserves to have the school named after him. Without him, Princeton would not have become the inclusive and diverse town it is today. Thank you everyone for watching and considering this idea for the name change.